reading a lot about the IRS hiring another 87,000 new agents.
Yeah.
And how Congress and the White House has signed the bill. It's going to part of the Inflation Reduction Act. I don't know how that's really going to work out, but that's a whole separate topic. Let's keep it on the IRS. $80 billion getting allocated over the next, 10 years for the IRS. And I think a lot of people are quite anxious over this, as they probably need to be. What are your thoughts?
What I think actually is, since 2020, people have been selling their houses. Small businesses have been selling their businesses. People have been starting businesses and side hustles. Cash App, Venmo, all these things have gotten big. People have been dumping crypto. I think money's been moving like crazy, and I think Uncle Sam is hunting for his share. I think they know that we've been pretty laxed, and Venmo and all these little side apps too are making you have tax documents now. They're forcing you to have them. So, yeah. I
think to your point, you brought up a good point about crypto, and I crypto is still a fairly unregulated industry. So for instance, when a individual sells stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and in the markets that are regulated by the SEC and FINRA and other organizations, we as the owners of those assets, get tax papers sent to us, and those tax papers go to the IRS at the end of the year. But that whole monitoring and reporting system hasn't made its way to crypto quite yet. So I know there's a lot of talk about needing a lot more oversight, a lot more reporting when it comes to crypto transactions. And so, yes, I think you're going to see a lot of regulation in that industry coming up in the very near future. And but also, back to, you did bring up a good point too about there's a lot of people that are making money in little side hustles, and they're getting paid through these apps, Venmo, Cash App, and Zelle, and other platforms, and making money and not getting reported. So I think that the IRS has over the years been trying to legislate, or not. They make the rules. Congress legislates, but they're basically trying to get a lot more reporting and lowering the requirements. I know that a few years back, they, if you had credit card transactions, it used to be a much higher number that you had, but now the number's gone way down. So I forget what the dollar amount is, but it's pretty low for what it was. If you have a few $1,000s or whatever the number is in credit card transactions in your business, your credit card processing company is going to give you a 1099-K, and the IRS is going to get a copy of it also. So it's just they want more reporting. And, as part of this $80 billion financial package, there's what I read, and there's about $20 billion set aside for systems and hardware and software to better accommodate advanced reporting, additional reporting, and also to be able to give them a system-wide or enterprise-wide platform which to operate off of. And I have to agree from that perspective. I think they are way behind in technology, and I think they did need some money set aside to make them a lot more efficient. I know working with the IRS for almost 30 years, I can see a noticeable difference, especially in the last 10 years, in their efficiency. 5 specifically, but in the last 10 years, 5 specifically, where their turnaround time, their response time, their accuracy, their ability to problem solve in a very quick and efficient manner has gone down significantly. And I think a lot of it has to do with older platforms and older software. So I think that being able to set aside some money for a system or a system-wide or enterprise-wide software platform is going to be beneficial for all of us as taxpayers. The downside to it is it's going to be beneficial from a customer service perspective. The downside to it is they're going to want more and more information, and this upgrade to their hardware and software is going to make it easy to accommodate a lot of additional information and processing it. So it's going to have some good and bad with it, but if you're doing all your taxes right, you got nothing to worry about if you have to go through an audit. So,
yeah, I mean, I see people commenting online that they're not scared of the tax man because they don't launder money and they do their taxes, so they have nothing to worry about. But from my experience, especially from younger employees that I've dealt with in the past, a lot of 20-somethings and teens 18 up, like young adults, don't have bank accounts.
Mm-hmm.
They're like just using Cash App, Venmo. That's their bank.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't, no reason to move their funds into a bank. I mean, think about it. Like, this is just from a younger person's standpoint, but like, I remember, I can loosely quote the news post about it. It showed like Bank of America took 40-50 million. I don't want to say billion. I don't think it was billion, but like showed like tens of millions of dollars, if not hundreds, made that much money from overdraft fees from people. And someone's like, let me translate this. They took $100 million from people that had no money, is what they commented on. And but then if someone has any of these apps, there is no overdraft thing. There is no, like, people feel safer almost because there's not so many traps, so to speak.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how the next 10 years as the IRS, I mean, it's going to take them years to upgrade their hardware and software. It's going to take time to implement, come up with a software and technology plan, and implement it, build it out, and get everybody trained on it. It's going to be years and years in the making. And then hiring of these agents is going to be years and years in the works. You're looking to hire 87,000 new agents. I think it's going to double the size of the IRS. You can't go out and hire that many people overnight, expect them to be efficient. So it's going to be, a slow rollout we're not going to wind up, doubling this number of audits next year, even the following year. And even when those audits do start, they're probably going to be handled by some inefficient agents that are new and green. So it's going to be uncomfortable for taxpayers that have to go through this, but I've been talking to my clients for many years, especially my clients that have a business or businesses that got rental property. I've been talking and telling them for years that, they need to expect that it's not a matter of if you get audited, it's when you get audited. So I tell them to expect that, especially if they're high income earners and they got a business, they got rental properties, because the IRS knows that people that have the ability to determine their income, they have the ability to determine what expenses run through their business. Over years and years or decades of doing audits, they know that people are going to err on the benefit of their own side and not the IRS's side, generally speaking. Not everybody does. There are some people that do their taxes, impeccable and everything is above board. But I think that over the last 10 to 15 years, with the number of IRS audits going down, we're not hearing, whether it be amongst our friends, our peers, our colleagues on the news, a lot of horror stories about IRS audits. And so you kind of potentially get a little relaxed, a little cavalier in the way you prepare your books to get your tax returns done. So I think now's a great time, since the IRS has allocated this money, and as I mentioned earlier, it's not going to happen overnight. So now's a great time to sit down with your CPA and go over how you're conducting your business. What kind of things are you running through your business? What can you write off? What can you not write off? Are you accounting for everything properly? And just kind of do a total overview, a total review of what you're doing to make sure that if you do get audited, that you don't have any adjustments. And because what happens is, if the IRS finds, if they come in and audit a particular year and they realize there's a lot of problems, they may want to go back and audit the past year or two, depending upon how many years they can go back. I mean, they typically only go back 3 years. It's what's called the statute of limitations. You can only go back 3 years. So there is a time limit, but if there's fraud and they suspect fraud, they can go back as long as they want to. And then, once they suspect that you've had some, that you've done some things that may or may not be quite right, they may want to go forward a year or two as well. So you potentially open yourself up to quite a number of years being audited if they find some significant problems. And here again, they're hiring 87,000 new people, so they're going to have the ability to be, to take their time. If they're to audit just 1 year, they find some things wrong, they may expand it to 2 or 3 or 4 years. So, and they're going to have the horsepower to do that. So it's going to become, more important than ever that if you wind up getting audited, that you got a clean set of books. Give them a reason, snooping beyond the year they're there for.
What is your opinion on the internet's making a big fuss about the guns? involved with the IRS. So what do you think that's all about?
Great question. And so I remember when, let's just say this bill got passed 2 weeks ago, something like that. I don't know the exact date. I want to say the next day there was an ad posting for the IRS, and I'm not going to quote this exactly correct, but something in the ad was saying, need to be comfortable using a gun and potentially using deadly force. And so that became kind of the internet lit up with, that they were going to hire 87,000 armed IRS agents, and they're going to be, coming to your house and collecting money from you and harassing you. And I'm not saying there's not going to be some armed agents, but the reality of it is, there's most of the agents at the IRS are not armed, but they do have a criminal investigation division, and those agents are armed because they sometimes find themselves in dangerous situations as they're trying to, I'll say, apply the tax laws and go after people that aren't being compliant. So here again, it's probably a very poorly timed post by the IRS. In hindsight, they probably regret posting a job out there like that. But at the same time, they probably have a need, and they posted it, and it was just the perfect storm, perfect timing, where the internet caught it, and then for those that don't want to see these 87,000 agents get hired, they just used it to spin it around to make it seem like there's 87,000 are going to get hired and are all going to be carrying guns. And that's not going to be the case. But of these new 87,000 agents, are some of them going to be in the criminal investigation division? Are they going to be carrying a firearm? Yes.
I see a post here on Twitter, one of the top posts, that talks about something in Florida. It says Florida plan to fight increased IRS audits. It says state license for all IRS agents, financial legal state help to defend against IRS audits, state criminal penalties for political audits, state banks to issue regular report on IRS requests for info to elected DC officials. Do you know anything about this?
I read that, and I think Florida has been not just on the doubling the size of the IRS, but on all kinds of issues. Florida has been, in the last couple of years, especially with Ron DeSantis, as our governor, we've been kind of the leader in protecting our citizens, whether it be not locking down for COVID or whatever the case may be. We've been kind of recognized as a leader and in protecting our citizens. So I think this is another way we're going to do that. I don't know how. And I'm not accusing the Republicans and or Ron DeSantis of putting something in place that's more grandstanding than it has any substance. I just don't know. Okay, so you have to, as an agent, sign up or get registered here, with Florida. I don't know what that really. I don't know if that's enforceable yet. It hasn't even passed Florida yet. So I imagine once it passes Florida, maybe some kind of pushback from the federal government. Who knows? Having the banks here in Florida that are chartered to do business here in Florida, if they get some kind of notification from the IRS about a taxpayer, they have to notify the state of Florida as well. Here again, that I guess they being the division of, I'll say, financial services, there's probably some division that oversees banks. They may be able to enforce that. So I think it's great to send the message that we in Florida, especially the government here, to protect our citizens from government overreach and government harassment. How much of it they can enforce, I don't know, but I think it's a great message to send that here in Florida we're not going to be, you're not going to intimidate us, you're not going to harass us, and we're going to protect our citizens. So I think it sends a great message. What it's really going to amount to being, it remains to be seen.
Well, what is your advice then for any small business owner, even medium-sized businesses? I know from my experience as a marketing standpoint, I've had to look behind the curtain from a lot of businesses, and I'm going to say like less than half of them really have they have it together.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like on the behind the scenes, things always seem to be a bit. They're kind of figuring it, putting the plane together as you're flying it, so to speak. So what's your advice?
I think that when you double the size of an agency and you give them that much more ability to carry out a mission, it's going to increase the number of audits for sure. And as they get their software and technology changes, they're going to be able to have more sophisticated software, and they're going to be able to run more sophisticated analytics that will help them be more strategic in who they audit. In terms of they're looking for anomalies, looking for variances, looking for looking for patterns and numbers that don't match industry trends. And then they're going to be with the auditing, they're going to be able to be just more strategic. I think that I'm pausing because my mind's going in a couple of different directions. I think that they, being the IRS, knows that small business, medium-sized businesses, people that got rental properties, people that have, as I mentioned earlier, the ability to control or to make decisions on how their income is categorized, whether it be taxable or non-taxable, run expenses through their businesses that aren't really business expenses. The IRS has realized over the years that's happened a lot, and so they know who they're going to target. One of the big things that they're going to be going after is a lot of your small S corporations, a lot of your owners don't take out reasonable compensation. And the IRS has won, case after case after case over several decades where they've won, lawsuits against shareholders of S corporations for not taking out reasonable salary. And the reason they do that is to avoid, paying as much money in Social Security, Medicare tax. And as we all know, and been heard for many, many years, those systems are in danger of going bankrupt or going broke. And that date is getting nearer and nearer in the windshield, if you will, when that's going to happen. So, they know they need to collect more money from those types of taxes. And they know that people that have S corporations are quite often taking out low compensation and not paying in what they being the IRS may consider someone's fair share. So here again, if you have a small business, if you have any kind of business, I would really recommend you sit down with your CPA to make sure that what you're doing, how you're doing things, you're doing it correctly. You're not, that you're aware of all the tax laws that affect your business, and that those tax laws are being applied properly. In your favor. Of course, you don't want to leave deductions off the table, but you want to make sure that you're not taking deductions for things that you shouldn't be taking deductions for, or you are, just outright doing things incorrectly and not know it. So here again, I said this earlier, and I want to say it again. If you have a business, if you got rental property, you need to be thinking that it's not a matter if I get audited, it's when I'm going to get audited, and you want to be ready.
Right. So,
and just real quick to interrupt, but I want to, there's, it's not, here again, you don't need to think of an audit as a, it's going to be hassle. You have to make sure you dig up all your records and document everything. And when I say everything, let me kind of correct myself or give some different options there, opinions there, different directions they could go. So sometimes the IRS may want to come out. I've seen them, this just goes back years ago. The IRS was taking a sample. They were auditing about 6,000 small Schedule Fs. Yes, F for Foxtrot, and that's what you use when you have a farm. So what they realized is that there's a lot of small farms out there, people all across America that may have a 10, 20, 30, 50 acre farm, and they may run a few cattle or have a few horses, have whatever they're raising, and they really have no chance of making any money because their operation's not big enough. They don't have enough land to really make it profitable, but here in Florida, we get a greenbelt exemption if you have anything that's more than 20 acres, maybe it's 10, it could be 10 acres. You can have a greenbelt, and so if your farm is used for ag purposes, your property taxes are a lot lower. So while you're saving property taxes, you're now taking a tax deduction for something that the IRS says really isn't a business. There's no intention of ever making money there. It's really a hobby as opposed to a business. So my point in all that is we had two clients, 10, 15 years ago that had Schedule Fs, and they got audited just for the Schedule F. So my point is, just because you get audited doesn't mean they may not audit your entire return. They might audit just a certain number or two. They may audit a whole schedule. So they may not come after you for the entire return. I've heard of people that got audited for their charitable contributions. They had a lot of charitable contributions based on their income. The IRS said, "Hey, we want to see the documentation." You send the documentation. It was a mail away, a correspondence. There was no face-to-face interaction with the agent. We had a client going back years and years ago. They got audited for alimony. They wanted to see all the documentation to support the alimony deduction. So here again, just keep in mind that just because don't think that you're going to get audited for your entire return, but you could. Here again, they've got more people, so and they probably haven't done in the last 10 to 15, 20 years. They haven't done a lot of auditing. And there's been a lot of new businesses that started up. There has been a whole new internet revolution. There's been a whole e-commerce thing that's really come alive in the last 10 to 15 years. And so all that's had a major impact. And so they're probably going to be doing quite a bit of auditing, so they can go out and say, okay, the metrics that we were measuring businesses on and see if they had any significant deviation from the norms. Those metrics have changed just because businesses change. So we need to go out, gather fresh data, put this in our system, so now we can have new metrics to measure current data with. So here again, there's going to be all kinds of programs, and they've got all kinds of resources. So I think that, just here again, we all need to tighten up. We all need to make sure that we're taking expenses that are legitimate, and you make sure you got all the documentation. There's no reason with as easy as it is to scan things in that you can't scan things in and have a hard copy for the future reference.
I did have a thought while you were talking, thinking about what's been different about the last few years, and there's been a lot.
Mm-hmm.
COVID being one of them. That's stimulus. I think I had my first little micro audit myself this year for the first time in my entire history of filing taxes. And it has everything to do with the fact that I think maybe I forgot to include my $1,200 of one of my stimuluses.
That's that could have happened too to a lot of people. There was a lot of money floating around out there. There was actually 3 different stimulus programs where consumers could have received checks. Then you had the advance payment of the child tax credit, that they just started sending out. You had to log on and turn it off if you didn't want it. So, and then they were sending out notices to people, of what they paid, what they got paid in stimulus money. So it was kind of a last couple 3 years with all this COVID relief has made tax preparation more difficult because there's been things that people typically don't get that don't have on their returns, and then we have to document, did you actually get it? And then there was a lot of fraud. There was massive identity theft going on nationwide. I want to say hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of tax returns got hacked nationwide. And so not only do you have all this extra work, not only has the IRS had to deal with all this extra, because the IRS had to, all the legislation passed by Congress for COVID relief, that was mostly carried out by the IRS. They were the ones issuing all those stimulus checks, and then they had to rewrite all their programs and software to accommodate the accounting of that when the tax returns got filed. So then, though on top of that, massive identity theft, around the country. It's been, they are, not just for auditing, but they need extra staff just to get back on top of day-to-day customer service and taking care of the letters that come in. I want to say I read an article I read at breakfast a few months ago. There was 20 million pieces of unopened mail in IRS offices. Not 20,000, not 2 million, but 20 million pieces of unopened mail. And we've had some clients, we've had to send off some correspondence to the IRS, and it's taken them months to get back to us. And then we get a reply that really the reply that we get doesn't even make any sense based on the problem that the clients have with the IRS. And so it's just round and round and round, and taking sometimes a year or 2 years to get a simple problem solved. And so, again, I know nobody wants to hear that the IRS is staffing up because they know what that means for us down the road. But regardless, we do need more people providing customer service, and we do need better technology. Here again, nobody wants any more audits. I don't want any more audits, but whatever reason, Congress approved it, so we're going to have to deal with it. And the best way to deal with it is to be prepared.
Right. People fall behind on things just because, especially anything government related. Mm-hmm. You want to make a phone call and get ahead of it and work on it good luck. All the systems are kind of designed to not take calls.
Yeah, there's a number that we as CPAs and tax practitioners can call. It's called the Tax Practitioner Priority Line, and for years I've been able to call that line, and it's been well staffed with people that have a lot of experience at the IRS and can problem solve and get things done. And I can't even get through that anymore. For that, really? that line there that's for us as practitioners isn't even, basically I've called it a few times, and I'm going to paraphrase the response, but basically, hey, we're busy, we're backed up with calls. Try us again tomorrow, and the phone disconnects.
Sorry, we're on the gun range.
Yeah, they're on the gun range.
We're on the gun range.
On the gun range practicing. And they got 87,000 new IRS agents to teach how to shoot and shoot straight and hit the target. So yeah,
we'll get back to you.
Yeah, they're out target practicing, and they're spending a lot of money on lead, a lot of our money on lead, for those agents. But here again, not everybody's going to be carrying a gun at the IRS, but there'll probably be a couple of thousand extra new agents that are going to be in criminal investigation division. So that will be, that there are going to be some new armed agents, and some of the things that people participate in, they probably do need to be armed because they wind up, there are a lot of folks out there who don't conduct good business, and they do things fraudulently. So we need people. We need a certain amount of these people to put it into that and into those kind of activities. So
well, I think this is a good time to kind of transition into tax prep and tax planning. I mean, especially for small businesses, and it sounds like for people too. I mean, people that are playing too much around with Cash Apps and Venmo, and not really. Probably not being very good stewards with their finances, onto the small business, the medium business owners. I mean, if someone needs help planning their taxes and prepping their taxes, I mean, you're the guy to reach. How do they get a hold of you?
So they can give us a call here. Our numbers are listed below. We also have a website that you can reach us on the website too. It's suncocpagroup.com. You can contact us there. There's a form you can fill out, and you can request an appointment and let us know what kind of services you need us to help you out with. And be happy to help you out. We got offices in 2 locations, Brooksville and Spring Hill, and both offices are fully staffed. And I know that a lot of my clients are business owners, or they're busy throughout the day. So I have met with clients nights and weekends as well, and sometimes as late as 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, if they need to. So I'm available. And weekends aren't off limits either. We can schedule a phone call, schedule a Zoom call, schedule a meeting, in office appointment, and come to your place. Whatever we need to do to meet up and have that conversation. And you mentioned tax planning. Now's the time of year to start thinking about tax planning. You don't want to do your tax planning the last week of the year, because if you really need to make some big strategic moves, you want to make sure you get the time to make wise moves and not just make moves out of desperation or make moves quickly. You want to make sure you get the time. Depending on what it is, you want to make sure you've got the time to properly plan to move, do the research. If you're buying something, make sure you got time to price things out and get the best deal. So, and basically we're at the end of August, so we're 2/3 of the way through the year. So we should typically start doing some tax planning this time of year. So, definitely September, October, November. You're now getting into, especially when you get towards the end of November to the rest of the year. You're into the holidays. I'm not trying to imply no business gets done over the holidays, but it definitely, business slows down during the holidays. It takes an extra day for this and an extra day for that, because so-and-so's on vacation and so-and-so's, off for the rest of the year, so-and-so's whatever, it just, things just take longer. And so, you want to make sure that if you know you're going to need to buy something or to make a significant shift in your business that's going to require coordination with other entities, other businesses, other people, you make sure you give them plenty of time to be responsive and get a good plan in place, so you can, make sure that whatever you're trying to accomplish before the end of the year, you can actually get it done.
Cool. Well, this has been a good podcast, Randy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Glad you're here.
Yep. And find us on Spotify, YouTube, subscribe, follow us. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.